Hello. So in this video, I'll be taking you through the entire process of decorating this luxury tall wedding cake for NNC. So come with me as I condense over 62 hours of work into 20 minutes. I started off by prepping all of the buttercream and all of the white chocolate ganache that I would be needing. Then I was able to start layering and filling the cakes. I prefer using Swiss meringue buttercream to fill my cakes because it's just got that beautiful texture. It's light, silky, and it's not too sweet. It's very nice. For this 7-tier wedding cake, 4 tiers will be real and the other 3 tiers will be fake. And the sizes of the real tiers are 12 inches, which you just saw me filling, which was marble in flavor. This one is 8 inches and it's an Oreo, or should I say cookies and cream flavor. And for my cookies and cream flavor, I really give it a lot of love. There's a lot of cookies and cream that goes into it. The next tier is 6 inches, and as you can see, it is red velvet in flavor. Just look at that sponge. And lastly, we've got the 4-inch tier, which is lemon in flavor. Those are all the real tiers, and the last 3 tiers are 21 inches in size, 15 and 10. Moving on, I'm now going to cover all of the real tiers in white chocolate ganache. The entire cake is going to be decorated in fondant, but I first of all like to do a covering of white chocolate ganache, and that's because I find that it gives a lot more, should I say, stability to the cake. I'm only covering the 4 real tiers in white chocolate ganache because the fake polystyrene tiers do not need it. Here's a lineup of all the cakes covered in the white chocolate ganache, and doesn't it just look nice, straight, crisp, smooth and clean? After this, I made some holes in the fake dummy tiers using this polystyrene melter thing, but I would not advise doing this because of the fumes that it gives off. Yeah, lesson learned for next time. With all the tiers prepped and ready to go, I moved on to covering them in fondant. Now, one thing about me is I love working with fondant. Okay, maybe not working with fondant, but I love the way fondant covered cakes look. It just gives a clean, flawless look when it's done properly, and honestly, it's just amazing. Over the years, I've found a way to make fondant work for me without spending too much money on it, and honestly, it's been a game changer because I'm still able to flawlessly cover my cakes to get that clean, professional look, which is what you want when you're covering your cakes in fondant. One thing about me is I like to make things work, and I believe this is an important trait for any cake artist to have because most of the times everything will not go the way you've planned, but you just have to bounce back from whatever you're doing and still be able to create something that's beautiful looking. Now, it took me around 10 hours to cover all the cakes in fondant, and let me just say, it was not easy work because imagine kneading for 10 hours straight. Yeah, you can see the redness in my palms, but anyways, it was worth it because look how straight, crisp and clean all of these 7 tiers look. Now, I do have classes for many stages of the decorating process on my website, but I'll talk more about that later on. Now, before I embark on a wedding cake journey, I always like to commit it into the Lord Jesus Christ in prayer. Like, just take a look at the clouds in the sky, the flowers in the field, like Jesus Christ made that. So with the creator of creation by my side, this is the design I came up with, and after confirming with the couple, they were happy to proceed. So let's start decorating the 21-inch fake tier. I measured the length, circumference, width, which English do I use? I measured the length of 1 petal so I can know exactly how much fondant to roll out in order for me to do the fondant drapes. Now, this particular part took a long time because I knew exactly what I was going for in my mind, but when I was trying to execute it, it just was not working. So that was trial number 1 failed. For trial number 2, I cut out the shape and I tried like making some lines inside it to give the drape effect. And deep inside, I knew this was not going to work, but I kept on going. I was trying to see if I could salvage the idea. So I was just using my fingers to try and get that effect. I hope you guys know what I mean by the drape effect. I think by seeing this, you should understand what I mean, right? I hope so. Anyways, after I tried my best to make it work, no, it was not happening. So I switched off the camera until I found something that worked. Yay! And of course, I'm going to show you how I did it. So I rolled out rectangular shaped pieces of fondant, and I'm adding some water. That's my adherent, water. I folded it in half and I used the rolling pin to flatten the edge that I pressed together. And using some more water, I stuck it to the cake in like a drape C shape, and I basically continued that process and kept on adding more inside each other. And the higher I get, the more I add, the smaller the pieces are, if that makes sense. But yeah, when you're decorating a cake, if it doesn't work out on the first go, just be calm, and keep trying, because in the end, it will work out by the grace of God. So after all the trial and error, this is the 21-inch petal tier successfully covered in drapes. The next thing I'm going to work on are the bows that are going to go in between each petal. To make the bow, I start off with 2 pieces of fondant. The longer one is to make the main shape of the bow, whereas the shorter one is for that fabric thing on top. So I'm folding the 2 sides together and bringing them into the middle. And with my X-Acto knife, I'm cutting out the excess fondant in order to bring out the shape of the bow. After that, I'm just using some ordinary water to stick the folds together that I made at the beginning on either end, and then I just press them together, adding some pressure to make them stick, and then I add some water underneath and press it down to make sure it sticks to the bottom. Next, I'm moving on to the fabric thing that will go on top to make it look even nicer. I'm basically folding this piece of fondant back and forth on top of each other, just like you do when you're making a paper fan. Once I've done that, I then apply some water on the back part of this piece of origami, and then I basically just stick it on top of the middle of the bow. Literally, making a bow is actually very simple. It's just something you just get better at doing the more you do it. So I was done making the bow, but I needed to add some volume, should I say, to it. So what I did was stuck some kebab sticks into a cake board, and then I just put the bow down the kebab sticks. So I'm using this kitchen roll to add the volume to the bow. So I just fold it and fold it and fold it again, and then I just put it in both sides of the bow. After I had finished making all the bows, I placed them in the oven to bake. I don't know if that's the right term for me to use. But anyways, I put them in the oven at around 100 degrees Celsius, I think. And then I let them sit on the counter until they became hard. Now moving on to the 6-inch and 15-inch tiers. So I'm going to be using some luster dust to paint both of these tiers. I bought quite a few different colors because I knew I'd have to do some mixing to get the shade that I wanted. So what I did first was test it out on a piece of fondant, and then I put it up against the flowers that I would be using, and I was just choosing which one I think would go best. After deciding, I mixed up a bigger batch, and once I was happy with the shade I got, I started painting it on the cake. So as a typical baker, I started at the back just in case it was not going to turn out the way I wanted it to turn out. And once I reassured myself, I then just started working from the top. So what I definitely did not want was to see the strokes of the brushes at the end. But when you're on like your first or second coat, you definitely will see the brush strokes. But don't worry, just keep going. You will end up getting there in the end. By the way, I mixed the luster dust with dip-in solution. And whilst the first coat on the 6-inch is drying, I just did the first coat on the 15-inch. It actually was not as easy as I thought to do this, just because I didn't have like a solid color. So when I was dusting everything at the end, it just wasn't that easy. But anyways, I managed to do it, and this was how it ended up looking. I'm now going to use one of my signature stencils called Delight. And this is just one of the many stencils that I designed by myself, of course, by the grace of God. And since this is a fondant covered wedding cake, I'm using royal icing to apply the stencil onto the cake. This is the 12-inch real tier. And as you can see, I'm just taking my time to apply the stencil, and using my scraper, I'm trying to make it as smooth as possible, so when I take it off, it looks really nice. I'm now adding some edible luster glitter dust, and this was a workout for my thumb because I had to press it so many times. But anyways, after I was happy with the amount of glitter that was on the cake, I took off the stencil, and this is how it looked. The pattern is so beautiful, and you can't really see the glitter that much, but trust me, it was there. Now I'm basically just going to repeat the process on all the other tiers. So this is the 10-inch tier, and it is fake. And for those that are confused as to why not all the cakes are real and only part of them are real and some of them are fake, it basically comes down to the preference of the bride and the groom. Some couples want extravagant cakes that will tower above their heads, and those are the type of cakes that I love to do. But one, they don't have enough guests that will finish all the cake if it was fully real. Two, they already have a dessert table, so not all the guests will really want to eat cake. And three, it's slightly Emphasis on the slightly cheaper. There's a common misconception that there's a huge price difference between fake and real cake, but that's not the case. There is a slight reduction in price because obviously I'm not having to do all the labor of baking the cake, but then again, there's still the cost of the actual polystyrene dummy itself, and I'm still doing the same amount of decoration to make it look nice. Anyways, I digress. Back to the stenciling. As you can see, I've stenciled all 5 tiers, but of course I'm going to take it to another level. But before I do that, if you're interested in purchasing the stencil, you can head over to my website and join the waitlist so that when it goes back in stock, you can be notified. I'm using the same royal icing to pipe some dots into the middle of the flower, and then I'm sticking the white pearls into the middle. Let me share something with you really quickly. When we look at a flower, we know it's got a middle part. I think that's called the pistil. But just imagine this: if you're to take away the pistil, the center part, then all the flower petals would just come falling down, right? And if you're to pluck 1 or 2 or 3 petals from the pistil, then those petals will just wither and die. Now let's apply that illustration to a Christian's relationship with Jesus Christ. Let's say our life is made up of 6 petals. So 1 petal representing family, another petal representing education, 1 representing your business, another representing your goals in life, just 1 petal for whatever is important to you. If you make Jesus Christ the center of your flower and you put him first in all you do, then all those petals will thrive at the appointed time and they will grow. But if you don't put Jesus Christ first, if you don't seek his kingdom and his righteousness first, and you pursue those things trying to make them grow yourself, then in your eyes it may seem like everything's okay, everything's thriving, but spiritually everything's actually dying and withering away. And it will not be worth it, because when Jesus Christ comes, or when you die, you will give account. Don't lose your soul to hellfire because of anybody or anything. Allow Jesus Christ to know you now. Allow Jesus Christ to be the center of your life. Stop making Jesus cry with the way you're living your life. If you don't already know, let me tell you, the anger of God is coming upon this wretched and wicked generation. Repenting for my sins, surrendering my all to the Lord Jesus Christ has been the best thing that I've ever done in my life, and it will remain the best thing ever. So as you can see, I've now finished applying all the pearls to all the tiers, and it just looks so amazing. I particularly love the luster dust tier with the white stenciling on top. Moving on to the stacking. I covered a 24-inch board in fondant and I attached a center dowel in the middle. I'm using royal icing as my adherent, as my glue, and I'm just feeding the 21-inch flower tier into the center dowel. After all the fondant that I added on this tier, it actually ended up being a lot heavier than I was thinking. I'm now applying some pressure to make sure that this has stuck down properly, and then I'm going in with the 15-inch tier, which is also fake. I'm then feeding it through the center dowel and making sure that it sticks to the bottom tier. Before continuing the stacking, I decided to finish off working on the bows for this tier. I wanted to have I don't even know what to call it, the legs of the bow dangling off the side. I first started off with a fat rectangular piece of fondant, but I didn't like the way it looked, so I was like, no. So then I thought, oh, maybe I should use some ribbon instead and like try and make it curl so, you know, it looks a bit nicer. But once again, I didn't really like the way it was looking, so I decided to scrap that and make the rectangular pieces of fondant a bit thinner, and I liked this one a lot more, so I went through with it. So I placed the bow on and it was perfect, so I was happy, very happy. I then moved on to making the topper that will go on this cake, N and C. I like to make all my toppers myself because I believe it adds that extra uniqueness to my cakes. I added a gold ribbon between the tiers. So now back to the stacking. A lot of thinking went into how I was going to stack this cake and make sure it was stable enough so it would not fall, because the last thing I'd want is all my effort being in vain. So that was my original stacking plan, but I had to change it up a bit because of the space I had in the car. So now we've reached the builder side of baking, and I'm just adding all the support dowels that is needed to make this cake once again as stable as possible. I'm actually in the process of making a class all about stacking cakes. I've done all the filming, I just need to do the editing, which takes so long. But this class is perfect for those that want to learn how to stack cakes with confidence. So if you're interested, leave a comment down in the comment section so I can know that you're interested, and that will give me more, should I say, motivation to actually do it. So here is the cake fully stacked, 7 tiers of beauty. To finish the cake off, I'm going going to dress it in the florals. The couple wanted cascading flowers, and cascading flowers I did. So there's some white, some cream, some purple, some light pinkish peach. And after I was done, I unstacked everything, put them in boxes, wrapped them in cellophane, and I loaded the car. I got ready and I headed off to the venue. But before we get to the venue, for those that are looking to upgrade their caking skills, or even for beginners, I have classes on my website that would be of good benefit to you. And I also have a wait list that you can sign up to for when I start to offer physical classes. So that's caketasia.co.uk. Now back to the cake. The journey to the venue was around an hour drive. I unloaded all the cakes out of the car and brought them into the venue. After settling down and getting all the tiers in, I started assembling. So first of all, going in with the 21-inch flower petal tier. And if you remember, I stuck the 15-inch tier to the 21-inch tier at home. After adding some royal icing as my glue, I'm going in with the 12-inch tier, which is the third tier. Because I had already done most of the work at home, I knew exactly which part was my front, which part was my side, and this just makes everything less stressful and more fun. So after adding the 10-inch tier, I'm applying some pressure just to make sure that it's stuck down. And this was important for me to do because the 10-inch tier was fake, so it needed that extra love. After going in again with my adherent, the royal icing, I'm now going to stack the next tier, which is 8 inches in width and around 9 inches in height. And as you can see, the flowers are beginning to cascade and everything is just starting to look so nice. But after adding each tier, I'm just double checking to make sure everything is as straight as possible, to make sure I have the right front at the front. A lot of thinking and a lot of hard work goes into these type of cakes, and I'm just happy when it just starts turning out so well. So glory be to my Lord Jesus Christ. Woohoo! Moving on to the next tier, which is 6 inches in width and once again around 9 inches in height. Sometimes I do get a bit shy when I'm setting up at the venue because I'm like, oh, people are just watching me. But I don't let it get the best of me, and I continue my work because I know that my work does a lot of the talking. And I may be a small girl, but I've got a big God that is always by my side and that helps me to make gorgeous cakes like this. So that does give me a lot of confidence. Anyways, I digress. So as you can see here, I'm just feeding that long 60-centimeter dowel down through the center of all the 3 tiers. And I'm sure some part of it also went through the 12-inch tier. After that, I'm just once again adding some royal icing, ready for the last tier, which is 4 inches in width and around once again 9 inches in height. And as you can see, all my tiers are, should I say, quite firm. I'm able to hold them very easily without any of them like pressing into themselves or anything like that. And I would say this is down to the white chocolate ganache that I use underneath the fondant as well as the fondant. So if you're not using white chocolate ganache underneath your fondant cakes, well, you need to start doing it. With all the tiers stacked, let's move on to the final touches. I'm now going to add all 6 bows around all the like dips in the flower petal tier. And all I did to add it was just place some kebab sticks through the bow once I've sat it on top of the cake, and then I hammer it into the tier. This was all I needed to do to secure the bows into place, because this bottom tier, the base tier, is fake. It is a dummy cake. So I just continued this process all around each dip in the flower petal tier, just hammering the kebab sticks in and securing the bows into place. And already this cake, it's given me... wow. Like most of the times, I'm as amazed as you are. Like when I watch back the clips of me making the cakes that I make, I'm just like, how in the world did I do that? And it just reminds me that this gift is truly and indeed from my Lord Jesus Christ. And that is why I have told myself that all I do in this business must be done to the glory of God, because he's the one that gave me the gift. So therefore, I must not use my hands to create something that will be displeasing to him. And that is why it's not every cake I take on as a cake artist. Anything that will compromise my faith in Jesus Christ, I say no to. After completing the cake, I used the royal icing to write cut here along the 12-inch tier, just so the couple knows where to cut when they are doing their cake cutting. So this is the 7-tier tall wedding cake in all its beauty, in all its glory, in all its splendor, in all its gorgeousness. And as you can hear in my voice, I am so excited. I was excited, I am excited, and I'll continue to be excited when I look at this cake, because It is just mind-blowing. And most importantly, the bride loved it, which means it was a job well done. So by the grace of God, I know that I know how to do a 7-tier wedding cake. So my next cake 10 tiers, 12 tiers, 15 tiers, 18 tiers, bring it on. With God helping me, as always, I know that I will over deliver, as you can clearly see here. So 2025 couples, 2025 brides, your wedding cake artist is waiting for you. With that being said, thanks for watching.